Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alright, we will start with chapter 1, Non-Clinical Support Services in Hospitals of Malaysia. So we look at the introduction. What are the non-clinical support services in Hospital of Malaysia? And the biomedical engineering maintenance part. Right. Differences between clinical and non-clinical services. Right. So these are the good one of the comparison made. Okay. Clinical roles often have face-to-face contact with patient, purpose of diagnosis, treatment, and ongoing care. Whereas the non-clinical, the work may not support patient care. The work does not provide direct diagnosis, treatment, or care for the patient. That means there is no direct contact with the patient. Right? Some clinical professions are behind the scenes, such as laboratory professional whose work support diagnosis and treatment. These people are the one who's doing all the lab tests and for example, when you want to investigate certain patients, what we call blood compositions, then these are the people who is working behind the scene, right, in the laboratories, and then those who support the diagnosis and treatment processes, and also these physicians, MD, registered nurse, patient care technicians, right? For non-clinical, examples are medical billers. Those when you go to the counters, they produce the bills. Coders, transcriptionists, those who write the transcription for you, and then those who do work with the computer system, the network system, data system in the hospitals. These are the people who directly don't interact with any patients. And anyone who works behind the scene at the hospital is, for example, human resources, and IT and biomedical technicians, administrative assistant, and so on. Right? So clinical engineer, engineers equals to scientists plus technologists. That means when someone is called as a clinical engineer, so there are certain characteristics that they do have. For example, you mix this science and technology, right? Biomedical engineers, they apply the engineering principles and design concept to the field which is called medical biology, for example, for healthcare purposes, right? So they have the engineering knowledge, and they also do have biomedical knowledge, and then they can come up with the design and concept based on these engineering principles, mainly on medicine and biology for healthcare purposes, right? Next is clinical engineer. When biomedical engineers work within the hospital or clinic, they are more properly called clinical engineers. It's just because the surrounding environment, so they've been positioned in the hospitals or in the clinics, so therefore they are called as a clinical engineer. But the clinical engineer, they also do certain tasks. That means certain tasks which are dedicated for them to operate or to conduct or to manage, right? Review health alerts. If you can see these the box hexagon, so they have few review preventative maintenance program. That means which equipments does need maintenance, which equipment does need the maintenance. So you do this review. Equipments, audits, documentation. So you need to know, as a clinical engineer, you need to know where is the equipments positions when it comes to audit, and when the documentation. So all the records for the document buying, the purchase, and usage, right? All the maintenance, track record. So it is under clinical engineers as well. Equipment evaluation. So you also do evaluation for a certain equipment. If the equipment is already too long been operated, so you will be called to evaluate and then to give a recommendation, right? To give a recommendation to the hospitals, to the clinic, whether we should do something about this machine because it's too long. Or you also be called to evaluate, to recommend new equipments. So you have new equipment, so is it really useful for the hospital, for the clinics to be used? So you, as a clinical engineer, you are able to give recommendation. And then communication, right? Communication. So you, as a clinical engineer, well, all engineers has to communicate, but as a clinical engineer, you also must able to communicate at various different level. For example, between the doctors, nurses, who the one that operates the equipments, with the high level, the directors of the hospitals, the managers, so that you can put forward your points and your ideas and the tasks that have been given, so that whether you have delivered them or not. So you should be able to communicate, right? Therefore, communication is important part as well. I mean, it does has certain concern on the type of language that we use, whether it's Malay or English language, right? So you have to decide if you're going for the job, then which one that you're going to use. I mean, either Malay or English language, right? Apart from that, you also have to do review of equipments, failures, and incident, right? If there is any equipments which are in the condition that is emergency call, that means it's not working properly, right? So you need to do a report or review based on that, so that you notify the management whether it should be there should be done some maintenance, repair, or minor major repair, or you have to find a new one. So that's the review for equipment failures. Incident, if there are any serious cases, that means there is a accident happens, or any incidents, failures which is leading to damages to the patient and so on. So you also are the responsible person to write this review of equipment, right? So these are some of the clinical engineers' tasks and responsibilities when it comes to the job. Okay, moving on. Right. Uh, this is the what we call non-clinical support services in hospitals of Malaysia. So you have few companies which we have mentioned before. Um, Privatized companies support engineering services in Malaysia, such as Advanced Pack, Radicare, QMS Quantum Medical Solutions, Medivest, and others. And their services and coverage area divided by the zone. So northern, central, southern zone, and east of Malaysia. So they have the division of their zone. Okay. Non-clinical support, such as clinical waste services, right? You have seen people carrying the yellow beans, blue beans, white beans, and also sometimes called green bean, right? And this yellow beans is the hazardous parts, where they put these needles, glasses, and the laboratories waste and stuff. So these are called clinical waste. Clinical waste. You cannot throw these needles and glasses and all the laboratories waste in the normal bin, like the green bin or any other bins. But these are the specially dedicated one, the yellow one. So these are also service that falls under non-clinical hospital support services. Other than that, linen and laundry services. You see when the hospitals, when the patient use the beds, so they have this bed sheet and pillowcase and their clothes. So when there's a new patient coming, they will replace it. So these are also a process done by laundry services and linen. Okay. Cleansing services. So they are cleaners who work in the hospitals, right? So there are these cleaners that works in the hospital. You can see that they do the mopping and cleaning the toilets and so on. But they are also working in the same area, non-clinical, but they have to be very careful with the materials and the stuff that they touch and they use in the hospitals. So for example, in rooms which is quarantine room and where there is infectious diseases and so on, so they have to wear extra protection and they work in the same environment but with the different types of protections in their services. So apart from the mopping the floors, cleaning the floors, and swiping the floors and other services, there are also some extra precaution cleaning services that they also involve, right? Then facility engineering maintenance services, FAMS. So this one is to deal with all the electricities, wirings, pipings of gas, oxygens, and CO2s, and many other pipings that are required in the hospitals, right? So this is for facility engineering maintenance. Then they're also called Biomedical Engineering Maintenance Services, BEMS. Alright, so this one is mainly the focus in this subject. So our student, I mean you guys, when you go for the work, this is what will be your aim. So you will be joining the teams of BAMs in the hospital. So we have our previous graduates, so many of them have joined these sections, services. So they do the troubleshootings, the repairs and maintenance, preventive preventive maintenance, PPM, and so many other activities which they are enjoying their work. So this is one of the another part of these non-clinical support services, BAMS. So we do maintenance. Whenever there is any breakdowns in the hospitals, for example, in the operation theatre, there is a breakdown of one of the equipments. So you'll be called in. So you'll be called in. Time will be clocked. So they will use how long do you take to respond and to clear one of the report. That means if it is not a major repair, then you might be able to solve it at the same time. But if it is a major repair, then your unit, BAMS, this BAMS unit will have replacement equipment. That means the operation can go on as been scheduled by you giving them loan or replacing the equipment for temporarily, so they can use this, right? So you as a engineer working in the under BAMS, you will be sometimes in the routine of checking all the equipments. Sometimes you will go from what we call from the section to section to just evaluate and check the what we call tahap dia kata, tahap kegunaan alat tersebut kan. So you whether it is working in the right condition or not. And then you will also be in the standby team, so that you will respond to any of the calls made by the doctors, nurses, so that there is a what we call immediate response team, so from the BAMS, right? Other than that, next is hospital planning and equipment. This is quite interesting, right? So some of the graduates, they will think I'm a medical electronic engineer, so I'll just work in the engineering part. No, not really. But since you do also some subjects on the management part, facilities planning and management, you will be surprised to see that sometimes when you work as an engineer, you will be called in. For example, during a big hospital planning project, so they will call you in. If they say there is 5 engineers, all these 5 engineers, so you will be divided into 5 groups, and they will say, okay, one of you each focus on the CT scan, on the X-ray machine, on the MRI. So they will ask your opinion how which floor we should put this MRI in. So you as an engineer, you'll be able to advise the hospital. Okay, MRI is a heavy machine, so we need them to be in the which floor, and this radiation base and so on. So we need the wall thickness at such level. We need the machine position at the ground level, because it is a too big machine. You cannot carry them. So the door size. So you don't want they have built the MRI room, and then when the MRI arrive, you cannot bring it into the room. So it's a shame. So the design has to consider the door size, the wall size, for radiation type or non-radiating type. So what are the equipments specification? You will advise the hospital planning team, so that they know, alright, which one will come first, the equipment first, or the building first, or the design of the room first, or which one. So you'll be involved from the beginning, and this is also to do with the equipment. Then they will ask you which latest equipment is recommended, which is cheap and have good functions, reliable. So you will be involved in the equipment as well, right? So how you should plan, how much machine, how much system you need, right? So you will be involved from the beginning of the process. And then we will look at this BAMS functions, the purpose of them, right? So in this slide, I shared about just the main points. BAMS, they ensure the medical equipments undergoes comprehensive planned preventive maintenance on regular basis, right? This is quite important for expensive machines, right? crucial machines, that means you equipment that you use regularly. All right, you need to do plan preventive maintenance, not just preventive maintenance, but you have to plan for them, so that you can use a certain equipment which is quite expensive when you bought, because medical equipment mainly they are 1 million, 2 million, or 3 millions. It is quite expensive. So how we can use this machine for long term? So you don't want to buy 1 million, 2 million equipment, and you just use for 2 years, and then you're going to scrap it and buy a new one. So we presumably in Malaysia will buy one equipment, then we will use them for 10, 15 years or 20 years, right? So unless it's outdated or something, then they will change the equipment. But one of the purposes you have to do this comprehensive plan preventive maintenance, so that the lifespan of the machine is increased, right? When you don't do this preventive maintenance, what happens? You might end up using the equipment for 3 or 4 years without any maintenance, but on the 4th or 5th year it's going to break down. But when you do this planned preventive maintenance, yearly maintenance, right, every 6 months or every year's maintenance, hopefully the machine can be used more than 5-6 years, so it's going to go up to 10 years, right? So this is one function. Then you have to attend any breakdown, like I said previously, with the stipulated response time. I mean, if this equipment, what are the equipments and what are the time frame they given you, there is a standard for that, so you'll follow. So if you say 2 days, in 2 days you will repair, in 3 days you will repair. So it depends on the emergencies and the situation. Provision of comprehensive maintenance services help medical personnel to provide services to patients with minimal concern. That means if you have the machines, everything ready, then the medical personnel able to execute their task easily, without any pendings, without any rescheduling, right? But without this comprehensive maintenance, and then this is what will cause some delays and pendings of certain operation and work by the medical personnel. Now we go to the scope of services. As I said before, maintenance, biomedical equipment. Okay, when you divide them into group: diagnostic, therapeutic, operation theatre, OT, laboratory, and radiology. Alright, so you also do the inventory of biomedical equipment. I mean, this listing, alright, listing the inventory, giving numbers, and then the records of equipments. Fully equipped workshop and laboratory to support the biomedical's maintenance service. I mean, you need to have these workshop which are able to do all these repairings, on-site repairings, troubleshooting, right? Loan of critical care equipment for the purpose of maintaining availability of service. Like I said before, you have this standby equipment, that means the extra, so that you can loan them to the for the purpose of maintaining the availability. I mean, the service should go on, the operation should go on. When there is some breakdown, the machine is being replaced by another machine that can be used for the time, while you repair the one that has some problems or the issues. Right? Scope of services includes the warranty and service contract management. So nowadays people prefer the service contract management. That means when you bought this equipment, it also comes with the contract for service management. So you also provide this agreement on that warranty and also services. That means you don't just buy the equipment, but you buy also with the services for what we call the maintenance and the management of the equipment. Medical equipment planning to access the need of biomedical equipment, right? This is basically you do this the planning of which type of equipment is needed and so on, and need access to which section, which part of the hospitals and clinics. Then project management for procurement, equipping, installing, commissioning, testing and handling over biomedical equipment. This is basically when you buy new equipment, it comes in so that you have to, what we call, you install it, commissioning and testing it, right? So we want, as a user, we want to know whether this equipment is working as it is promised. So we will do the installation, commissioning. So they will look at you as an engineer to do this testing, okay, and commissioning. Once you have done, then they might ask you to do some sort of training as well at the same time. So you will do the training for the medical personnel, for the users, and then once they are satisfied, you will also do this handing over of biomedical equipment. So you'll hand it. So this equipment is handed over in a good condition, right? So they know it was working fine and so on. Quality assurance testing for imaging equipment, right? This one is you do a commissioning of the newly bought equipment and so on, and then you also do this QA, quality assurance or testing. That means you make sure that the equipment is working as it should do or as promised. So the data and the measurements is reliable and is giving the correct desired output and so on. Right. In the next lesson, we will look at the some of these procedures for the biomedical engineers maintenance, right? So we look at this one is will be highlighted in the next lecture. So for now, we will stop at here, and hopefully you will find some extra information from the what we call the topics that I have covered, so that you make extra notes, and you should be able to find out more information and the details in the topics. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.